In the Driftlight bar, happy hour turns to ice as the lights die and a rip opens in the air. A towering stranger steps through and speaks Jonah's name with a voice like broken glass. Everyone runs. He doesn't. One joke, one hidden plan, and a choice that could save countless lives. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video, and tell us where are you watching from. Now, let's jump into the story. The Driftlight had been an easy place to ignore your troubles until happy hour arrived and invited everyone else's. 3 weeks ago, Lonnie the bartender had posted a simple note: half-price drinks, station time 1700 to 1900. Jonah Reed didn't mind the savings. He minded the crowd. He liked the Driftlight when the stools showed their age and the jukebox hummed soft, when the ice clinked like slow rain, and nobody expected a story from him. The bar was full tonight. A Seleni family settled by the viewport. A circle of mechanids traded salvage rumors. 3 Corvidans argued about skein racing and pretended they weren't keeping an eye on Jonah. He recognized a small wave near the door. It was Mira, a child he'd helped pull out of a bad place months back. She grinned. He lifted his glass and kept his smile small, so it would not turn into a headline. Sirach of the Koresh slid onto the next stool with the ease of a boulder discovering gravity. Sirach had eyes that caught every flicker and a voice that rumbled like a distant lift engine. 6 months ago, Koresh and humans had met each other on the wrong end of a hunt. Now Sirach and Jonah met between sips and called it peace. "Your pulse is restless," Sirach said, gently. "It's happy hour," Jonah said. "Too many opinions per square meter." "You endured worse," Sirach noted. "Those tried to kill me," Jonah replied. "These just want to buy me a drink and tell me what I did." Lanny leaned in, sliding a bowl of warm twists and a small pot of mustard. "First real mustard I found in months," she said. "Guard it with your life." Jonah's grin almost reached his eyes. "This is why I come here." That was when the temperature fell. Not a draft, not a fickle air unit. An instant, cruel winter. Breath turned cloud white. Glasses frosted. The jukebox clipped mid-note and died. Conversations thinned and then snapped. Children clutched hands. Mechanids went still. Sirach's spines lifted, each one a warning. The Driftlight's lights stuttered, went dark, then bled red. In the middle of the floor, space stopped pretending to be polite. It pulled apart like fabric, teased by invisible fingers. Behind it was not a room, or a ship, or a face. Behind it was geometry that disagreed with the present. The rip widened, and a tall figure stepped through, angles moving where no joints should be, the air itself grinding around it. "Jonah Reed," it said, voice like shards in a tin. "You ended our lattice. You wrecked our careful shaping. You are owed consequence." The word designer had started as an insult and stuck. Some called them shapers, some called them ghosts. Jonah had another name for them he kept on the tip of a sigh. He reached for his glass instead. Around him, the Driftlight cracked. People fled through side doors. Chairs overturned. Even the Corvidans forgot their pride. Soon only 4 remained. Jonah on his stool, Sirach at his side, Lonnie behind the bar with her hands too steady, and the being that had ruined the room. "Not during happy hour," Jonah murmured, because humor was the thin shield that had never failed him. The designer tilted its head with an elastic insult to anatomy. "You jest in your last minute." "No," Jonah said, putting the mustard in his jacket with gentle ceremony. "I bargain for 2. You are responsible for the fracture of a lineage," it said. "We crafted a path toward unity. You scattered it into screams." We pulled children out of cages, Jonah replied. Your path steps on small people. The rip behind the designer quivered like a held breath, deciding not to be. Sirach's hand hovered, not quite on the hilt at his back, not quite off. Lonnie's eyes flicked toward the... Jonah followed that glance, because the driftlight survived on small plans layered like tile. You can take my life, Jonah said to the designer, or you can let me finish the only thing today that tastes like home. You'd be surprised how much good sense fits in a warm pretzel. The designer made a soft sound that wasn't a laugh. You attempt delay. I attempt mercy for my stomach, Jonah said, and for everyone still listening. There is no audience, it replied, only witnesses to an end. He nodded at the frozen room. Witnesses are louder than you think. The red lights trembled. Somewhere, a child hit a sob like a smuggled gem. Sirach shifted, quiet as careful snow. Lonnie's fingertips found the old console's cracked key. If you must, Jonah said, standing with care and leaving his glass on the bar, we can do this now. But I'm warning you, I'm more annoying than I look. And I am more than you can measure, the designer said. Fine, Jonah said softly. Let's arrange. Lonnie pressed the key. Every idle screen woke screaming. The jukebox blazed full volume with nothing like music. Service lights snapped from red to raw white. The bar's cracked soundboard, the refrigeration unit, even the ancient ticket spitter in the corner. All of it began to hum in a woven, brutal chorus. Countersignal, Sirach breathed, a rare smile ghosting his mouth. You planned for their kind. I planned for another bad night, Jonah said. Turns out it fits this one too. The arranger flinched. Not much, but enough to peel the fear back from the room. Impossible, it hissed. It always is until it isn't, Jonah said. The rip behind the arranger flickered like a doubt. The driftlight began to fill with the fierce possibility that this might be survived. And then, at last, people remembered how to breathe. The arranger lifted a hand. 3 supple edges unfolded into a blade that didn't catch light so much as Sirach slid forward, larger than any trouble yet somehow quieter, placing his broad frame between Jonah and the weapon. The air trembled where that blade moved, like water committed to being glass. This chorus is crude, the arranger said over the screaming devices. Noise cannot unmake design. It doesn't have to, Jonah said, just needs to make you think twice. The hum had been born months ago in a basement lab with a door that didn't lock quite right. Whisper Gray had built it from scraps, angry insights, and a stack of broken devices salvaged from rooms that still smelled like hospitals. The trick was simple. Take the small signatures the designers left in everything they touched, braid a disharmonious mirror, and blast it from every cheap speaker in a room. Lonnie had hidden a cut-down version in the driftlight skeleton. Jonah had taught her the trigger because he trusted her to only push it when there was no other prayer left. The arranger hesitated, not because it believed in prayer, but because something inside its engineered nerves disliked the taste of the moment. You are delaying your loss, it decided. Maybe, Jonah said. Or maybe I'm getting my friend his opening. Sirach moved like a calm fire. He did not charge. He simply stepped where he needed to stand and let gravity do the rest. His first strike slid through the fringes of the arranger's coat of angles and cut truth from its skin. Light bled in a way that made nearby bottles remember they used to be sand. The arranger recoiled, and then adapted. A second blade unfolded, this one vibrating at a frequency that made the room's old nails hum in their boards. Sirach blocked, winced, and still stood upright. Jonah took the beat that hurt granted him and ducked behind the bar. "Lonnie," he said, "can you get me the bottle with the hazard glyphs? The one we pretend is decoration?" She said, already reaching. "That's the one." "You will cease," the arranger said, and the air around the bar clenched, making sounds stumble. The chorus dimmed, but did not die. Jonah imagined Whisper Gray's grin when they had tested that redundancy. "Not during happy hour," Jonah said again, because it still tasted good to defy. Sirach fainted high, cut low, and earned a line of dark across his forearm. The wound smoked. He bared his teeth. "Unpleasant," he observed. "Most things worth doing are," Jonah said, accepting the bottle Lonnie slid across the counter. The label showed a pictograph skull with flowers for eyes. The liquid inside held a color that made common sense sit down. "I never thought I'd be happy to see this." "That makes one of us," Lonnie said. The arranger, irritated, slashed at the chorus itself. The jukebox coughed sparks. The freezer whined and died. The old ticket spitter gave up a final stub that read, "Good luck," and then melted. Still, the signal kept layering from hidden points in the ceiling and under the floor. "Primitive," the arranger said. "Effective," Jonah answered, moving along the bar, using the wreckage as cover. "You and yours always forget that simple and hopeless are not synonyms. You talk to fill your fear," the arranger replied. "I talk to fill the room," Jonah said. "Makes it harder for despair to sit down." With that, he vaulted the counter. The arranger struck. Space itself bending toward its blade. Jonah cut left, rolled, and came up near Sirach's shoulder. "Now," he said. Sirach locked the arranger's blade between two plates on his bracer, twisted, and just for a second, held it. Jonah yanked the stopper with his teeth and flung the bottle across the last step of air between hope and hurt. The glass shattered on the arranger's head. The liquid hissed like a lesson you only learn once. The scent in the room shifted to a memory of metal and rain. Where the fluid touched, the arranger's careful layer of living design buckled and slumped. "Contraband," Lanny said softly from behind the counter. "Seleni nerve breaker. Illegal in 17 jurisdictions. Very useful when customers evolve while refusing to pay." The arranger clutched at itself, 4 hands unfolding and failing to hold what could no longer agree to be a shape. It glared at Jonah with a set of eyes that didn't start as eyes. "You cannot stop what watches," it rasped. "I am not the first. I am not the last. Tonight was a test of your edges." "Then I hope you took notes," Jonah said. It tried to step into the rip that sizzled behind it, but the chorus and the nerve breaker tugged in opposite directions. It exploded, not into gore, but into a rain of dead machines, each piece a tiny apology for what it used to be. Silence fell slowly, as if reluctant to believe it had permission. People crept back in small steps. Someone sobbed. Someone laughed a laugh that ran out of balance halfway through and became something like relief. Sirach set his hand on Jonah's shoulder and found him still standing. It pleased him. The side door hissed. Station defense poured in with faces set to grim. At their front strode Kiara Dawn, the one who had spent months sending Jonah messages that he deleted with stubborn kindness. She took in the room, the wreckage, the glittering fragments that could no longer hurt anyone. "Jonah," she said, and then softer. "You okay?" "Define okay," he said. Lanny slid a cloth over the bar, as if tidying could teach the night to behave. "He will be," she said. "After I invoice somebody." A message crawled across his screen, from a sender with a string of characters that read like laughter under a false name, Oren Vale. It said, The arranger was one voice in a choir. The chorister leads the others. 6 remain. You have less time than you think. Ask Sirac to sharpen his patience. Ask Whisper Gray to build a cleaner song. Jonah read it twice, then a third time, because sometimes you had to let the words sit until they stopped burning. He turned the screen so Kiara could see. She set her jaw the way a person does when the road just got steeper and they are going to climb anyway. Then we stopped blinking, she said. We get to work. Jonah looked at the broken jukebox, at the red stains of light on the walls, at the mustard jar in his jacket pocket. Fine, he said. But first, I'm finishing my pretzel. Kiara almost smiled. As long as you don't call it victory food. It's survival food, Jonah said. That's better. Sirac nodded, the movement deliberate and approving. We will need much of that. We will, Jonah said, a wariness shaping the words without stealing their spine. And more jokes than seems wise. Your jokes, Sirac said, are knives with soft handles. I'll take it, Jonah said. He ate. The room, by degrees, remembered it was a bar. The first dawn after bad nights always looks artificial on a station. The glow comes from panels, not a rising star. It means the same thing. Try again. Kira Dawn set up a command table in an unused customs wing, where the echo helped her think fast and the cold kept her awake. Screens filled with systems, names, and yes, trouble. We need a network, she told Jonah. If 6 more are coming, we cannot rely on luck and sarcasm. We can rely on sarcasm, Jonah said, but I accept your point. Sirac brought news from the Koresh circles. Hunters would come, not for glory, but for debt. A debt to children spared from cages. A debt to a man who had chosen jokes over ceremony and still stood his ground. Mechanids offered grid space and power. Corvidans sent 2 long-sight sharps. The Seleni offered scouts with the gift of silence. The Driftlight became the unofficial canteen for the tired and brave. Whisper Gray arrived with a tool case and a scowl. She had hair that ignored combs and a voice that could charm a stubborn fuse. Your chorus worked, she said, but it was messy. I want portable. I want elegant. I want something that threads designer signatures and sings them to sleep. Can you build it in time? Kiara asked. If time behaves, Whisper said. It usually doesn't, so I brought extra wire. Volunteers filtered in, some with old uniforms, some with new scars. Training began in a cargo bay, borrowed from a merchant who called it philanthropy and meant it. Sirac taught patient brutality, the art of stepping last and still striking first. Jonah taught bad weather thinking, reroute, misdirect, set traps that feel like help until they become obstacles. Kiara taught discipline without cruelty. Whisper taught devices that hummed like bees when facing designer work. On the 3rd day, a teenager stood at the edge of the floor, unsure whether to step in. They had Seleni eyes, wide and reflective, but human shoulders, narrow and stubborn. Name? Jonah asked. Riven, they said. I was pulled from a room with blue walls. The people who worked there called themselves caretakers. They were not. What can you do, Riven? Kiara asked softly. Since then, Riven said, I sense threads I could not see before. When a designer device is near, my thoughts ring. When I touch certain machines, they quiet for me. Whisper's hands went still over a socket. You soothe their edges, she said. I need you. We need you, Jonah corrected. Only if you choose. Riven nodded. I choose. Days folded into one another like carefully stacked paper. The room filled with new routines. Morning drills, lunch briefings, midnight soldering. Progress was not a miracle. It was borrowed minutes and stubborn hands. On the 7th day, a message arrived to a secure line that had not been shared. It contained a meeting point and no threat. It said, "Come alone." And then, because honesty wears many masks, do not come alone. Oren Vale, Kiara said, reading the meta-signature. Our ghost. He helped last night, Jonah said. He knows too much to be comfortable. Which is exactly why I don't like this, Kiara said. You take Sirach at least. I always take Sirach, Jonah said. Sirach pretended to be offended and failed. They took a small shuttle out beyond the mapped edges to a coordinate too tidy to trust. The black opened like a door. A ship appeared where nothing used to be, sleek and quiet as a knife wrapped in silk. A docking arm reached out without menace, like a handshake across an old argument. Inside the receiving bay stood a figure in a plain cloak. When the hood fell, Jonah flinched, not from fear, but from recognition that came from somewhere he did not have a map for. Oren Vale's face bore careful lines burned into his skin by instruments that said they were saving him while they learned how to own him. His eyes carried the tired light of a person who wakes up in the wrong story and still chooses to read. I was defense once, Oren's Sirach's jaw hardened. You carry their touch. I carry it so others do not have to, Oren said, and for a beat, the air itself felt kinder for letting him say it out loud. The arranger mentioned a choir, Jonah said. You wrote back with a leader. The chorister, Oren agreed. A star map waking on the wall showed a station tucked in emptiness, not between planets, but between ideas. It is building a harmony engine, a device that drags minds together against their will and calls it peace. When it sings 1,000 light years will forget how to be many. How long? Kiara asked, over the comm from the shuttle, her voice a thread that kept Jonah rooted. 6 weeks, Oren said. Your fight at the Driftlight accelerated their timeline. You proved they can be surprised. The chorister does not enjoy surprises. We'll need a path, plans, weak joints, Whisper said through Kiara's channel, and something we can carry in pockets. Oren handed Jonah a slim case. Inside lay drives, diagrams, and a folding strip of light that behaved like paper. Everything I could steal without falling apart, he said. And one more thing. He looked at Jonah, not at Sirach or the map. I will not last. I am a bridge they built that keeps forgetting which side it belongs to. When I become more of them than me, I need you to end it. No one spoke for a time you could count on your palm. I hate that you asked, Jonah said. I hate more that I understand. Understanding is the first mercy, Oren said. The second is doing the hard thing before it does you. We will not waste your courage, Sirach said, and it sounded like a promise sung by stone. They left with more weight than they arrived, because knowledge is heavy even when it saves. Back on the station, Kiara cleared a floor and called it a war room, because calling it anything else felt like a lie. Jonah chose 27 names from a list that could have been a book. Koresh hunters, Corvidan sharps, Mechanid engineers, a pair of twins who never missed, Whisper, Kiara, and Riven, who insisted and would not be moved. I won't put a kid in the line, Jonah said, only half-hearted. Riven's stare didn't blink. I am not a kid, Riven said. I am what they made, and what I chose after. Whisper placed a hand on Jonah's shoulder and lowered her voice. We need their touch. The engine is alive. It will listen to someone who knows the language of captivity. Jonah hated sense when it hurt. He nodded anyway. On the night before departure, the Driftlight hummed again, not with fear, but with a complicated hope. Lonnie poured a beer for Jonah and a mild tea for Riven. Sirach sniffed the mustard, judged it acceptable. and tried it with quiet awe. "If we do not return," Sirach said, "I am glad I learned this taste." "We'll come back," Jonah said. "We just might complain the whole way." Lonnie leaned in over her clean bar. "If you do not return," she said, "I will send an invoice to fate. It will pay. It always does." They laughed, gently, because it was the only fair way to face the dark. The ship they took shouldn't have flown by any polite rule. It was a stitched miracle. Human hull, Koresh shielding, mechanid reactors that purred like content cats, Corvidin guidance that read paths where none existed, and Whisper's devices tucked into corners like stubborn prayers. They called it the Lantern because joking about light felt brave. The void between galaxies was not black. When the hidden station opened ahead, it looked less like a structure and more like a thought crystallized until it forgot how to be gentle. "This is where it keeps the engine," Whisper breathed, "and where we stop calling it, it." They slid through an access seam while the station blinked, one of Whisper's devices whispering a counterfeit rhythm at the shields. They landed in a bay lined with shapes that might be ships or bones. The team split into 3 threads. Jonah's group headed toward the central core it was never going to find. Sirach led flanking hunters whose job was to become impossible obstacles. Ghost, a quiet human who could convince doors to trust him, took a slender squad toward power conduits. At first, the corridors were empty, as if politeness had been written into the map. Floors learned it was gravity. Walls remembered how to be flat. Then the lights shifted from patient white to unsympathetic red. The station found its voice and used it. "Jonah Reed," it said through vents and plates and cracked seams. "You escaped one composer. Now you arrive as conductor. You will be folded." "We're all out of foldable," Jonah said. "Try again later." The first wave arrived, altered defenders, whose bodies wore designer devices, like roses that grew thorns inward. They move with awkward grace, not born to it, but drilled into it. Jonah shot center, then left. Then chose not to shoot at all, and threw a humming puck that stuck to a breastplate and sang. The defenders slumped, asleep on their feet, freed only for a minute. It was enough. The fight was close and stubborn. Whisper's tools turned designer edges into dull surprises. Sirach's team cut and withdrew, painting a path of ruined certainty behind them. Ghost sent a whisper over the net. "Engine not in the core. Move to a high chamber. Many cables. Too many." "Then we climb," Kiara said, her voice a pole in the ground. They climbed. Stairs became ramps. Ramps became decisions. More than once a hallway remembered it wanted to be a shaft, and they clung to the walls between choices. They lost 2 on the way, a mechanid who misjudged a changing gravity and compressed into a sphere that fit in a hand, and a Corvidin who refused to yield a doorway that wanted to be a mouth. Grief tugged at the back of Jonah's thoughts like a child wanting to be carried. He told it to wait and promised to pick it up later. The chamber at the top was quiet in the way of storm centers. At its heart floated the Harmony engine. It was beautiful because everything that holds lives against their will learns the tricks of beauty. Cables laced it to the room like a spider's proud work. In front of it stood the chorister, a being taller than hope and composed of several answers to questions no one should ask. 6 lieutenants flanked it, each one a different wrong. "You're late," the chorister said. "The song already began." "Hate when that happens," Jonah said. "Mind if we change the station?" "You cannot become many by wanting to stay one," the chorister replied. "We don't want to become many," Jonah said. "We want to become together, which is different." Words ended. The fight began. Lieutenants blurred in and out of place, stepping sideways through dimensions that felt like bitter memories. Kiara cut low, Jonah went high. Sirach chose the one too confident to watch their feet and taught a humility with an iron backhand. Whisper lobbed a device that unfolded into a frame of soft blue light, pinning one lieutenant's phase trick long enough for the twins to put them down kindly. "Riven," Jonah called. "Do you hear it?" "I hear a mind in a jar," Riven said, already stepping toward the engine with a steadiness that scared and impressed everyone at once. "And I hear it weeping." The chorister darted, a smear of intention crossing the space. Sirach blocked with both arms and lost a plate from his armor that spun away like a falling coin. Jonah threw himself sideways and found the ground with his shoulder, which complained later. Kiara emptied a cell into a lieutenant's shifting face and watched it become 3 expressions at once, none of them certain. Riven placed both palms against the engine's crystal surface. Their eyes went distant, their mouth shaped silent words. Whisper, ready to yank them back, hesitated. "They're in," she said, awe overtaking her worry. "They're speaking its language." "Pull away," the chorister warned, a hiss threaded with choir voices. "You will drown in it." "I learned to swim in small rooms," Riven said, and the engine pulsed once in reply. Jonah felt it like a pressure change in a storm. The mind inside the engine woke to a new kind of listening. It felt Riven's touch, not as command, but as comfort. Captives know the difference. It reached outward along the cables that fed it, and realized those cables led to the hands that had harnessed it. "Let them go," Riven whispered. The engine answered with light. Not a blast, not destruction. Release. The cables relaxed like tired muscles. The lieutenants froze, flickered, and folded into separate beings who had been glued together. They fell, breathing as themselves for the first time in years, and then sleeping because waking all at once hurts. The chorister staggered, struggling to stay a single song while all the stolen notes escaped. "You trade chaos for order," the chorister said, suddenly smaller. "You call it mercy. We call it life," Jonah said. "And we don't trade, we return." The chorister tried one last strike, straight at Riven. Sirach took it. The blow drove him back a full step, more than he had ever yielded to anyone. His knees did not touch the ground. He smiled a rare, private smile and said, "No." The engine brightened until the room felt like morning. The chorister's form broke into sparks, not of ash, but of undone intention. Each tiny flare, a self that finally got to stop being borrowed. The station groaned. Walls shifted toward collapse. Whisper grabbed Riven's wrist. "We have to go now." They went, carrying those they could, grieving those they could not. The lantern leapt 3 times in a breath and was far away when the station decided it had tried hard enough to stay ashape and became a memory instead. They came home to noise. Stations do that when people you love return. Jonah endured the speeches and stood where he had to stand until it was polite to slip out. The driftlight door sighed as if it had been waiting to be opened by exactly one person. Lonnie poured without asking. Sirach slid into the usual stool, slower now, a rap on his rib that would not stay long. "They want to pin medals to you," Lonnie said. "They can pin them to the wall instead," Jonah replied. Oren Vale found him there. The marks on his skin had deepened. The light in his eyes had more edges than kindness can smooth. He did not sit. "It's time," Oren said. Jonah stood, because some moments deserve respect you can see. "Are you sure? I can hear the ones still out there," Oren said. "Their words are walking toward me from inside my head. Before I forget, I have a choice. I choose." The driftlight held its breath. Lonnie stayed. She didn't look away. Jonah took Oren's hands first. You saved a sky full of names, he said. Tell them to keep theirs, Orin said, and nodded once. What followed was quick, because mercy is when it can be. When it was done, Lonnie set a clean cloth on the bar like a small flag. Friend? She asked. Friend, Jonah said. His wrist chimed again. A message in a voice that was not a voice. The caretaker comes. It trims, it seeds, it believes it is kind. 6 months. Another gardener with assumptions, Jonah said, smiling without warmth. He looked at Sirach. He looked at Lonnie. He looked at the empty stool that would stay empty and still hold a place. 6 months, he said. Enough time to teach more people to laugh at the dark, to share mustard, to sing the nasty little songs that keep us many. Sirach raised his glass. To difficult patience, Lonnie raised hers. To quiet that we choose, Jonah lifted his with a steady hand. To getting ready, they drank. The driftlight hummed again, not with fear, but with the untidy sound of a community deciding not to be quiet, when quiet would mean surrender. Somewhere beyond maps, something trimmed a plan and called it mercy. Somewhere nearer, people learned each other's names and built a better noise.